What's up everyone, it's me Zombie, and today I'm creating Star-Lord's belt and base of the blaster holsters from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. In the Guardians of the Galaxy universe, this belt is made out of leather, but I'll be showing you how you can make it out of materials that are available at almost any craft store. For this project, I'm using 4mm and 6mm EVA foam, barge or contact cement, faux leather, super glue, chrome spray paint or lacquer, various blacks and brown acrylic paints, Sculpey clay, puffy paint, molding silicone, and casting resin. I'm doodling out the basic shapes of my belt onto craft paper. This gives me a good idea of how I'm going to put the belt together and how it'll fit onto my body. I'm making sure to map out where the buckles will end up and how the straps will fit together in the back. Since the belt is symmetrical, I only have to make a pattern for half of the piece. Then I'll flip it over and use the opposite side. I sketched out a pattern and made sure to hold it up to my own belt line to make sure that I was making it the right size. I kept making adjustments until I was happy with the pattern. I repeated the steps with the straps, belt buckle, and other details on the belt. I transferred my belt pattern onto a long sheet of 4mm foam. I traced my patterns twice and cut out the foam pieces with a utility knife. I chose to use the utility knife for this project, but when using a thinner foam, like 2mm foam for example, I don't mind using scissors because the edges will remain even as long as you're careful. Here I tried making the little buckles on the belt using foam, but I didn't like the results, so I ended up scrapping them. Now it's time to make this thing look like leather. I got out my faux leather fabric and laid it out on my table, backside facing up. Then I put my foam pieces down and traced around each one, leaving about a ½ inch of extra room around each edge. After cutting out all my faux leather pieces, I brushed on 2 layers of contact cement on the back of my fabric and on the front of my foam pieces. I waited for a few minutes for each side to get tacky and then pressed each side together. I was really careful when I did this so the fabric would lay down on top of my foam evenly and not leave any creases or bubbles. I used this method on the rest of the belt pieces before flipping each part over. I used contact cement and coated the extra fabric on the ends of the pieces and on the back side of my belt parts. I pressed the extra material down on the inside of the belt and ta-da! These foam pieces look like leather now. I then assembled all my belt pieces with contact cement and super glue. Looking at my reference pictures, this belt had some nice stitching on it. To replicate that quickly, without hand stitching for hours and hours, I used puffy fabric paint to put little horizontal lines where the stitches would be. This stuff takes a few hours to dry, so I made sure to put these pieces in a safe place where no cats would step on them. Remember those foam buckles I tried to make? Well, now I'm trying another method to make those. I'm using some Sculpey clay and rolling out the material into a long tube. I shaped it into the buckle shape that I needed and compared it to the size of my belt to make sure that it was just right. I popped it into the oven for a few minutes until the material hardened, and then I let it cool. I needed 2 of these things, so instead of trying to make 2 identical buckles out of Sculpey clay, I made a mold using some Platsil 7320. You don't have to use molding and casting materials for this. It would be much cheaper to just make another Sculpey buckle. I just happen to have these materials sitting around, so I might as well use them. I mixed part A and B together by weight, mixed it well, and I forgot that I didn't have any mold release left, so I used some baby powder to coat my piece to make sure that the silicone wouldn't get stuck to my buckle and break it. I poured my mixture over my buckle and waited for it to set. And ta-da! There's my little mold. I used some baby powder on my mold and then used some Platsil 1511 resin and poured it into my mold. It was obvious a few seconds in that this resin had gone bad. Oops. Luckily, I was able to get it out of my mold without completely destroying it. Good thing I had some unopened Smoothcast 300 resin that I was able to mix up real quick and put into the mold. I used my rotary tool and sanding paper to clean up my little buckles. I was happy to see how strong the resin was, even when it was molded into a tiny, fragile piece like this one. Now back to the belt. I used some tan acrylic paint to go over all my stitch details once the puffy paint dried. I also used it as a weathering tone by watering down the acrylic and painting it over my fabric. I use a paper towel and some brushes to spread the pigment around and take away paint as needed. After priming and painting my foam belt buckle and my little casted buckles, I attach them to the belt using super glue. I even reinforced the belt buckle in the back with some faux leather so it would be even sturdier. I'm going over the buckles with a chrome paint pen for a slightly weathered look. If you don't have a paint pen, you can just use the same chrome acrylic paint that you used to paint the buckles with. For weathering tones, I used a chocolate brown and went over the entire belt with brushes and paper towels. I think this helped brighten up spots on the belt and turn the entire thing into a more accurate color. To attach the belt together at the back, I'll be using some industrial Velcro on the underside of the belt, and on the holsters to attach them to the pants when I make those later. And there you have it, there's my Star-Lord belt from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. As always, I love seeing what you're working on, it really makes my day. If you'd like to catch up with me on your favorite social media site, I'll put those links right down below so you can show me what you're making. Thanks y'all so much for watching, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next video. I'll see you soon, bye!